Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani, and boy, what a weekend it was in football. It got off to an unbelievable start. Things you probably thought you'd never see, you saw, but that's what sports is all about, and that's why we love it. We're here to talk about it. We have a lot to get into. We'll get to Pitt later, but the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown was a Steeler win in a style that I don't think anyone could have possibly expected, but it happened. And here to talk about it is your panel. We got fan representation here tonight from Paul Zeise, who is on KDKA-FM, AM, both right now. Both. Yes. Plus the Post-Gazette.
And well-dressed.
And well-dressed,
yes.
Absolutely. He's kicking
this is
it up.
A new look,
this is what happens when you
like this? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it'll look good. First time I ever wore a suit.
Very fancy.
Right?
Andrew Fillipponi from the PM team. Also does a lot of stuff on CBS Radio. Colin Dunlap, host of the Fan Morning Show. All right, so guys, there are a lot of topics to get in here tonight. So we should start with TJ Watt, because they're going to have tests tomorrow. Adam Schefter had a report that it's a pec. You read his lips. Colin, you saw.
Right.
That's what he said. I think I tore my pec. If that's the case, I remember Cam Hayward had that, and it cost him a season. What happens to the Steelers if this is?
I think if he tore his pec, I mean, I've heard people that have come back from that in 8 weeks, but we'll see what happens. I don't think it's – first of all, I do think he'll be back this year. Second of all, I don't think it's the end of the world if he did tear his pec. I think that a lot of people are putting the cart before the horse and say, if TJ Watt is out for an elongated period of time, the season's over. I don't necessarily believe that. He was very good today. He was a difference maker in the game. But they were very strong on defense on the interior. They were very strong on the back end. I thought 50 stepped in and played a pretty good game, and guys that you didn't even hadn't counted on a couple weeks ago. Certainly they take a big hit, but I still think this defense can be more than serviceable without TJ Watt.
Also, but the thing about it, with him in there, Alex Highsmith is better.
I agree.
Without him, I don't know if that means anything.
I don't disagree, but I don't think it's the end of the world if TJ Watt's
well,
out.
I mean, I think the big thing is with TJ Watt, they are elite. The defense is elite. And if you take that one guy out of it, I mean, you're still a good defense. Obviously, you still got Minkah Fitzpatrick. You still got Highsmith. You still got Hayward. You still got good players. But when you take that one guy who happens to be the best of them all, who happens to be a guy who makes plays that nobody else can make, yeah, that's going to change their defense a lot. And you know what? I think it probably takes them from what I would consider to be an elite defense to just a pretty good defense. And quite frankly, I think we saw today, they need to be elite if they're going to win games.
You took Alu away from their run defense last year, and they were dead last.
Yeah.
Would anyone disagree with that?
No, you're right.
He's a part-time player. One guy was that important to them.
Right. Well,
is he 1/10 of the player that Watt is?
Well, it was Tuitt as well.
But Tuitt was never played last year.
Right?
I mean, Wormley had 7 sacks. I mean, he's kind of a stiff, but it's not like to me, he's worth at least 2 guys. I don't know. I mean,
I would agree. I mean, I think it changes because now teams don't have to game plan for TJ Watt. That changes how they can do a lot of different things. So it would be a very big blow for them.
If the Rams lost Aaron Donald and they were all defense, which they're not because they have a quarterback and wide receiver who are all pros, I would say their season was ruined. I'm trying my best to not be overly dramatic about this, because he did leave the game on his own. Like, he left the stadium on his own power. He didn't have to go to the emergency room.
Tom was dancing in the post-game locker room.
Right. I mean,
seriously, I think that's a big indicator.
Do you think Hayward's talking about?
You don't necessarily wrap up a pec.
But Hayward, did you not say Hayward had the injury?
Yes.
He's talking about zombies.
Right.
I get it. I don't know how to read all of this. I'm just saying this is a report.
His brother came back in 2 months. That's how I look at it.
Well,
that's 2 months. That's a lot of games.
All right, let's talk about.
If he's out 2 months, they won't make the playoffs.
Let's talk about the defense with respect of defensive line stopping Joe Mixon, because last year, quite frankly, the Steelers, #1, made too many turnovers against Cincinnati, Andrew, but #2, they also could not stop Joe Mixon. 5.5 per carry today without one run of 31. They're really doing a good job. It was a 3.0 yards per carry. How good can this defense be up front, and how important will that be for them moving forward with stopping?
Well, Ogunjobi looks like the guy that the Bears signed for big money and is over whatever foot injury that knocked him out of the playoffs.
They got a nice discount on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to go down as a fantastic deal. I thought Alu was good. I mean, 3.9 yards per carry. They put Hayward, a smart move, over that left guard who was a rookie 4th-round pick, and he made him look like Kendrick Green.
dare I say,
So-
Devin Bush didn't get exposed.
I would agree
And
with that, too.
I think that had a lot to do with the run game today. There wasn't one moment where you looked at the television, or if you were there in person, that you looked down at the field and you said, "Oh my gosh, there's the glaring flub from Devin Bush that you always get in the run game."
I also think Tomlin, and I was skeptical of this, but his decision to sell out in the Detroit game to have his guys ready for this game worked. Because Cincinnati looked rusty to me. They look like a team that hadn't played all year, Paul.
Well, and
So
I
did
think
the Rams the other night,
and
and
part
they
of
didn't play anyone.
yeah, and I think part of it was, you know, Joe Burrow. We saw it with Ben Roethlisberger with that appendicitis. You know, he's been off. He looked a little rusty. I think as the game went on, he got a little better. I think the Bengals will be fine. To be honest, their offensive line I think is not great, but I think it will be better. They got better as the game went on. I just feel like with respect to the Steelers defense, they did what they had to do. They almost had to play a perfect game, and you know what? They came pretty close to that. If you consider, you know, what they were able to do in terms of scoring, in terms of, you know, turning them over, in terms of getting sacks. I mean, they played really well.
All right, before I leave this segment and get to quarterbacks, which we'll do in the next segment, I want to ask you about a key part of this game, which I thought were going to cost the Steelers the game. They had the lead by 6 at 20-14 and 1:51 left in the game, and they could only run 15 seconds off the clock, which made it possible, Paul, for Cincinnati to get an opportunity to score a touchdown. If they take just a few more seconds off of that, for God's sakes, they're going to end up having no chance.
But then they threw it on second down and it got batted down.
Najee got hurt on first down,
which forced him to
clock
take a timeout.
stop. Second down, egregious error by Matt Canada, almost a fireable offense to throw the football on second down.
Had a lot of those.
I mean, because there were 2 timeouts Cincinnati
That's right.
had.
No, I look at it, yeah, there was bad time clock management by both coaches, probably for the entire last 3 minutes of the regulation and the whole entire overtime. I thought was a display in how not to manage the clock. But yes, you get the ball back. I mean, you know that Cincinnati has to score a touchdown. Your only goal is to get as many, seconds off the clock and as many of their timeouts used up in that thing. And by throwing it on second down, and I guarantee you the answer would be on Tuesday will be, we don't live in our fears. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's okay to live in your fears. It's not about living in your fears. It's about playing smart.
Andrew?
Well, I think that specific decision is more on Tomlin than it is on Canada. Because the head coach has to be in the offensive coordinator's headset saying, we're running the ball here. That's a time and place decision by a head coach. The other stuff in terms of Canada's overall offensive philosophy for the game is a totally different matter that needs to be dealt with. But in that given moment, I didn't think Tomlin looked good. But by and large, he looked like Vince Lombardi compared to Zach Taylor.
Zach Taylor not challenging the touchdown.
Yeah.
If you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, you have to be furious.
Gene Steratore laid it out on the broadcast. And why not challenge that? As it turned out, they didn't score 1 point as a result of that. All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, we'll talk about the quarterbacks, we'll talk about the play calling, and we'll talk about what lies ahead now for the Steelers, 1-0 with New England coming to town, and they have some injury problems as well. We'll get into that as we continue right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown, so don't go away.
#1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran. Go one better.